Okay, welcome to part 2 for the complete training for Cover Action Pro 3.0. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to apply cover artwork to a mockup, and then how to prepare the 3D product shot for the internet, and how to prepare it for your website. We're going to crop it down. We are going to create a transparent background. We're going to talk about file types just to make sure that you're making the right choice and that your 3D book cover is going to look its very best on your website. All right, so I have a template here that I'm going to use, and if you like this template, you can find it in the 50 pre-made templates download, which is available in the download section on the members area. And this is going to be, we're going to make a little handbook here, like a little workbook. And so I already know that this is an 8.5 by 11 cover. And I know this by looking at the name of this template. It says 8 by 5 by 11. I can also figure out the dimensions of any cover that I have opened in Photoshop by coming up here to Image and then going down here to Image Size and just making sure right here where it says Width and Height, making sure this is set to inches, and then it'll tell me right here that this is an 8.5 by 11 image at 300 dots per inch. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that out, and let's get this cover here over to the magazine mockup that we are going to use. And if you want to follow along, you can use the same magazine mockup. I went into the magazine folder, and this is the file number here, which is mag08. So I'll be using this for this tutorial. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is copy this cover into memory so I can paste it into the smart object on the magazine mockup. So I'll come up here to select all, over here to edit and copy merged. And then I'll go back over to the mockup. And let's go over to the layers palette and locate the mag cover, which is right here. So what I'll do is I'll double click on the thumbnail for this magazine cover. And I can see that I can edit this layer because it's a smart object. And I know that because it has the smart object icon on the lower right. So I'll go ahead and double click on this thumbnail, and it opens up into a separate document. I'll come up here to edit, down here to paste. Looks great. And then I will close this document. I'll click on the little X on the tab. It'll ask me to save it. I'll click on save. And then my cover artwork is applied to the mockup. All right, let's take a closer look here at the spine. I'm going to grab the move tool, or I'm sorry, the zoom tool, and I'm going to zoom in here to the spine. You can see that the spine is a different color. It's just the stock gray color of the mockups. And I kind of want to change that to a color that blends in with the cover of the book. Maybe like this blue color here. So let's look over on the layers palette. And we have a shine layer here that we will talk about in just a moment. And here is a spine color. Okay. And in some of the mockups, the spines are so small that I've designed them so you can just select what type of color that you would like to apply to the spine, besides applying a whole artwork to the spine itself. I've created spine color layers with layer effects applied to them, such as the color overlay that's applied to this spine. So let me show you. This is pretty simple to do. You can change the color of the spine very easily by just double clicking where it says color overlay. And if you don't see that, you can expand it by this little arrow pointing down. You can see it says reveals layer effects in the panel. And then I will double click on this color overlay. And then you'll have the layer style dialog, which will appear. Make sure that you're on the color overlay, which should be by default. You should be all set there. And what I'm going to do is just click on this color box here, and then it's going to open up the color picker. Well, here's a cool little tip. If I bring my mouse pointer outside of the color picker, I get this little eyedropper tool. And this allows me to select a color on the cover of the book that will be applied to the spine of the book. Now, I can't see too much of the cover. Let me hold down the Shift key, or actually better, let me hold down the space bar on the keyboard, and that's going to give me this hand tool. You see that? And then I can just move this around while I have the color picker window open. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample a color like this blue color here. I'm going to click on that. And as soon as I do that, you can instantly see that color being applied to the spine. Isn't that gorgeous? It just blends right in. And that's about it. We're all finished here. So all I have to do is click on OK. And for the layer style window, I'll just click on OK once more. And then I'll hold down Command 0, which is Control 0 on Windows, and that'll zoom out the image. Nice. Okay, let's go back over to the Layers palette, and let's look at this layer at the very top here called Shine. Well, this is the shine that's on the top left corner of this book. You can see if I turn this off, the shine goes away, and then if I turn it on, it comes back. And I can control the intensity of the shine by turning up the opacity. So that might be a little bit too much, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn that down just a tiny bit. There we go. And let's look at all the other options and different layers that we have to adjust. I don't think there's a whole lot. I really like the way it looks right now. The shadow looks okay, and the background, I'll just leave that for now. And so the next part, when you're happy with how your product shot looks, if you're happy with how your book cover looks, then the next step is to crop it down so you can make it small enough to be placed on your website without all the extra white space that's around the mockups. The white space is there just for flexibility. It's to give you an area to work with when you're using these mockups. And so what I would recommend to do is to use the guides in Photoshop and use those when you're cropping your images down. So let's go up here to View and make sure that Rulers is checked on. My rulers are already checked on here. You can see the rulers that are around the canvas here or the document. And I'm going to select the Move tool on the toolbar. And then I'm going to click on the ruler, like this vertical ruler here over on the left. I'm going to click the mouse and then drag to the right, and that's going to create a guide. Well, this allows me to create multiple guides for my project so I can really crop this down, and without selecting it yet, I can see the area that I'm going to crop. So I'm going to click on this horizontal ruler up here. I'm going to click on that and hold the mouse down and drag out another guide. And then I will drag another one over here on the right. And I'm making sure to leave a little space around this. I don't want to crop this too close, because what can happen is if you crop your product shots and your mockups too close, you can, without even knowing it or realizing it, you can cut off the shadow of the book. And I've seen a lot of product shots on the internet that were made with Cover Action Pro, and the shadow's a little bit cut off, and I'm like, oh, if they were to just cropped it just a little bit outside of that shadow, then they wouldn't have that effect. It's not so noticeable on this particular mockup, but most of the books have shadows sticking out on the right and the left. But all right, so anyway, let's get back to it. I'm going to leave a lot more space around this book, and I'm going to grab another guide here from the top and place it right about here. Okay, and I can come back and tidy this up a little bit if I want to. All right, so now I can kind of get an idea on, what the book is going to look like cropped before it's actually cropped. Now, to crop this down, all we have to do is grab the rectangular marquee up here on the toolbar. So if you don't see it, you can just hold, it should be right next to the move tool, hold down the mouse and you see a little flyout menu here and select the rectangular marquee tool right here. And then I'm going to position my little crosshair at the top left corner and then drag out a selection. And then come up here to image and down here to crop. Now I could have used the crop tool in Photoshop, right? I could have used that. But because I'm so used to using the guides, we're gonna just go ahead and stick with this method for now. And the other method that you can use for cropping is the crop tool, which is over here. And at one point, the crop tool was not as efficient and cool as it is now. And I still have a habit of cropping things this way because of years and years ago when I started using Photoshop. So don't call me out on that one, but you can also use the crop tool as well. All right, so let's go back to image and select crop. And then after I crop it, I can just come up here to select and then deselect. And I can turn off those guides by holding down Command: on the keyboard, and that's Control:. There we go, and that'll make that disappear. So the mockup or the product shot is ready to be saved for the web. Well, almost. Let's just say that you have a multicolored background, or you want to make sure that when you place this on your website, that the background is not going to interfere. You don't want it to have any background. You just want it to blend in with the background on your website. So let's come down here at the very bottom of the layers palette. Let's scroll down and turn off the background. And you should see the little checkerboards here. That's just giving you an indication that you're looking at transparency. At this point, what I would do would be to resize this image because the document is really, really large. It's probably like 300 dots per inch. If I come up to view and select 100%, you can really see how large it is. So we don't really want it that large on the website. So here's something that we're going to do. We're going to resize this image, but we're going to do it inside the Save for Web command. And so I'm going to select Fit on Screen. And let's come up here to File, down here to Export, and you'll see Save for Web, which is currently Legacy. Now, the Save for Web used to be under Save As, but in recent versions of Photoshop, they've moved it into this Export flyout menu here. So I'm going to select Save for Web, and then I'm just going to adjust my window here so you guys can see everything. Now, if you look at the image, it almost seems like the background came back, but it really didn't. It's because the file type is set to JPEG, and JPEGs don't have any transparent information. But I'm going to show you how to fix that. So first of all, let me go ahead and select down here where the zoom controls are. I'm going to select Fit in View. There we go. Now, if I come over here where I select the file type on this menu, I can select the GIF, JPEG, PNG8, PNG24. These are the two that are going to give us that transparent ability to be placed on the web. Now, let me go ahead and select 24. And then as soon as I select that, you're going to see the options here change. It's going to give us an option to have transparency. And so if I place a check mark in that transparency box, now you're going to see the background disappear, just as it looks when you're viewing it in Photoshop. Now, the difference between PNG24 and PNG28, well, PNG24 just has more colors. PNG8, you're only restricted up to 256 colors. Well, unless you're working with, clip art or images that have very little color information, I would always recommend to go with PNG24 when you're working with these mockups. So I've selected transparency. The transparency is gone, but there's only one thing. We're ready to save this. We're almost ready to save this, but the image size is huge. It's quite large. So what we can do here is make sure the zoom level here is set to 100%, because 100% tells us the actual size of this mockup. So if we place it on our website now, this is how big it's going to be. And we can see the image size down here, the width and the height. It's pretty big. So we need to have some type of idea. If you're creating a website mockup in Photoshop, you're going to do this a different way. But if you're not, then go to your website and look at the space where your book's going to be and kind of get an idea on dimension-wise how big you really want this mockup to be. Now, where it says image size, just make sure that these are linked together. And for the width, I'm just going to enter in here, let's just try something like 300. And then if I click outside of that box and wait a minute, it's going to apply that. And that looks a little bit small. We're viewing it at 100%, so this is actually the size it will be on the website. So I have a nice preview of the resize that I've just applied. But let me go ahead and change that to 500, and then I'll click outside of that box. I'll click in the height box, and now that's going to make it a little bit larger. So that looks much, much better. The last thing to do is just to come down here to the Save button, click on Save, and then browse on your hard drive where you would like to save the file, and then you can upload it or place it on your website. And that's about it. So what I'll do from here is just give this a name. I'll keep it as mag08, and I'll save that to my desktop. As soon as I click on Save, it's going to save it. It's going to close the Save for Web dialog and return me back to Photoshop. Now, it seems like we're finished, but what we should really do is also save this PSD file. Save the original mockup file, which I really highly recommend. You can always come back to it and get the original mockup and resave it as a different size later if you want to, or you can make modifications to it and then resave it again. So it's important just to keep the original file. And to save it, you can just come up here to File, come down here to Save As, and then browse to the location where you would like to save the file and make sure that this is being saved as a PSD. And you know that if the format down here is set on Photoshop. So you can be sure of that. And that's about it. So thank you so much for watching. If there's anything else, any other questions or anything, please let me know. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. And let's go ahead and continue the rest of this series.